This is a review of the game Kingdoms and Castles. This game is something that I purchased from Steam. And basically, it's a city builder game. It's a medieval city builder game. There's dragons and there's dragons and there's Vikings. You build a small city. You can see how big it is. It's an island here. And you have the ability to make an army. You can make ships. There's trade. There's typical resources like farming and forestry, trees, rocks, and iron. And you have catapults. You have city walls. And the city walls can be built to different heights. If you look at the walls here, you can see that the ones that I made on the corners are taller than the ones next to them. And you have aqueducts. So this is a city building game, and we're going to compare it to different games. You have games like Tropico and SimCity and The Settlers, Age of Empires, the list goes on. Stronghold Crusader, Stronghold. Now, it has simple graphics, and it looks like a basic game or a beginner game, but it's not a beginner game. And it's not an advanced game, it's an intermediate game. And I've been playing video games for about 35 years or more, and I've played all sorts of video games. The reason why I call it an intermediate game is because it lacks certain features that you find in an advanced game. For example, in an advanced game, you have people, and if a person needs to satisfy their religious needs, they go to the church. If they need to satisfy entertainment, they go to the bar or the tavern. This game doesn't do that. It has a church and it has a tavern, but what happens is you have to be within a certain range of the building. For example, you'll notice that when I click on the church, some of the property becomes green. So there's an area of influence for all the buildings, and it's not based on people actually going to those places. They do go to get food. Okay, so the other game to compare it to is Banished. Banished is probably the best comparison. If you consider Banished to be an advanced city builder, this would be an example of an intermediate city builder. And it would be good for beginner players too. It's not overly complicated that a beginner can't play it. Now, the things that I like about the game is that it's fun to play, it's easy to play. I like the fact that it has city walls and that it has defensive towers. It's not dependent on having big armies. I have small armies. I'll show you, I have 3 armies. I'm going to show you one of them right here. I guess there's about 20 guys in this army here. Doesn't say the exact number of people. And you have the normal economy, which is food, wood, etc. And the people have to transport the materials, but it doesn't have a complex system. For example, when you grow food, it's food. There is one exception, that there are bakeries. So you can take the food, which is wheat, to the bakery, and you can produce more food. But in general, it's not a complex system. You know, the wood is used to make tools or weapons, and maybe the iron is used to make tools or weapons, but it's not a complex chain. For example, I think there's a game called Industry Manager Future Technologies that has a very complex chain, and there's other games that have a complex chain. This one is sort of basic. I'm going to sneeze. So it's got a basic chain of goods. The trade system is very basic, not as complex as a game like Banished. One thing that I don't like about the game is that you have to build, because of the area of influence, you use churches where you want to build a house. You know, I want to build a house here, but I can't because I need the church. And if you don't have these facilities, you won't get a greater population. I have 2,300 people, but I'm getting at the point where I've been playing for many hours and the population's not increasing anymore because people die of plagues and things like that. Even though you have doctors and they go around and they cure people, the number of people that are joining or being born is equal to the number of people dying in the plague. So the game is at a stalemate. The other issue is I've used up most of the territory. Over here you can see I have some room to build. I'm not using these trees over here. And I've got some room to build over here, but everything else is occupied with one thing or another. Now, in terms of how much time will you spend playing this game, I would say that a typical game could go on for a couple of days. I would say maybe 24 to 36 hours of gameplay before you start to fill up the island, depending on how quickly you play. I always had plenty of resources. It was always very easy for me to build whatever I wanted. I never felt that I had a shortage. There are different islands. It randomizes the maps. However, like I said, the maps tend to be small, and you really want to have only one island, because if you get many islands, you just get lots of small islands. And there is something called a Viking attack, where the Vikings will invade, and if you have many islands, you have to divide up your military. It might be more difficult for your military to defend. Okay, so I think the game is fun to play. I don't remember how much it cost. I would guess it would probably be about a $30 game. Is it worth the $30? I think it is, but it's not a game that you're going to play for 6 months or 12 months or a year. I think an advanced gamer might play for a week or two, and then you might start getting bored with it. You might start maximizing your map. There's little reason to go and build a new map to start over. I mean, the map diversity doesn't warrant starting over again. The Vikings, I'm at the point where I always win. I defeat the Vikings very quickly because I have really good defenses. The dragons are easy to defeat. They're easier to defeat than the Vikings. It is a fun game to play. One of the good things about it is if you buy it and play for 2 weeks, you could come back a year later and start it up again and play again, and you'll enjoy it because you'll enjoy designing the city and laying out the roads and laying out the buildings and things like that. So it is something that you can play over and over again over the course of many years. There's not a lot of games in this genre. Banished is probably the nearest competitor, and as I said, Banished is definitely more advanced and more elaborate than this game is. In terms of are they both fun to play, one of the issues I had with Banished is that it's difficult to manage a large community because of the AI. The AI doesn't handle transporting goods very well with Banished, but over here, because you have boats, you can have my boats are constantly shipping goods where they're needed. That's a feature that's lacking in Banished. You don't have a lot of control as to how you can move goods around. The AI is pretty good. I haven't seen anything stupid in it. I do think it's worth the money, and I'm glad that I bought it. When I first looked at it, I thought it was like a child's game or something like that. It's not a child's game. It's definitely a game that you could enjoy even if you're an advanced gamer. Okay, so that's my review of this game. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.